Welcome into OutKick the show. I'm your fearless leader, Clay Travis. We are coming to you from a new studio. So if it sounds a little bit different, if audio guy is losing his mind, it's because we have a new, pretty frankly spectacular studio setup, but we are still ironing out a lot of the kinks and making sure that everything goes as spectacularly well as we hope it will go. Still looks a lot very similar to you, I would imagine, but the audio may be a little bit different. I don't know. We'll find out whether or not that ends up being the case. But we've got a bunch of different topics to run into. College football playoff rankings are coming out later tonight. I will give you my take on that. Brian Kelly in a lawsuit with LSU. I'll give you my legal analysis here. We've got the ongoing dispute between YouTube and Disney. And more. It's also Veterans Day. Thank you. We just finished the Clay and Buck show, and we appreciate all of our veterans out there, including my uncle Kenneth, who is 84 years old, fighting cancer right now, and served in Vietnam. One of the veterans that I am most proud of because he is from my family. And so I know many of you out there also have different people in your families that you are very proud of that have served this country. And so today is the day that we honor all of them. And thank you from me to you for helping to preserve all of the freedoms that we take sometimes for granted, that are all a direct result of the bravery of so many of you out there who have selflessly given so much to the greatest country that I humbly believe has ever existed in the history of the world. That is the country that we are fortunate enough to live in all together right now, the good old US of A. Okay, let's dive into a bunch of these different stories. I don't know how many of you have been following closely this YouTube versus ESPN dispute, this Disney-Google dispute over YouTube television. I might be the only person in America who has signed up for YouTube TV since this whole dispute started. Holy cow. We have moved, and so we have added YouTube TV. This was the first time that I've ever had the ability to have NFL Sunday Ticket, and so the quad box on YouTube TV is life-changing. I don't know how many of you have this. I'm not being paid anything for this. I haven't been paid for television or cable endorsements in a really, really long time. I think since I did 3HL back in the day, Comcast was one of our advertisers. So I'm not getting anything from YouTube. In fact, if anything, YouTube probably hates me because they banned and barred several of my different interviews over time, including with President Trump and Senator Rand Paul, among others. So certainly there's no love lost here. I don't think they're sitting around like, hey, you know who our favorite media guy, Clay Travis. I'm just telling you as a sports fan, I signed up and I absolutely love it. It is extraordinary. Everything about it is really, really cool, except for the ongoing dispute between Disney and ESPN. And in particular, I thought this was wild. Bob Iger went on the Manning Cast, which is distributed by ESPN. I think it's on ESPN2 during Monday Night Football. The CEO of Disney, and they didn't even ask him about the dispute with YouTube. What's going on here? Why would you have on the CEO of Disney and not actually ask him about the biggest issue that most consumers of Monday Night Football have, which is, when are we going to get some form of resolution between Google and ESPN, between YouTube and Disney/ESPN? Because now I'm a YouTube subscriber. And now I'm sitting around like, wait a minute. I want to be able to watch my college football games. And I might not be able to do it. Now I can watch every NFL Sunday Ticket game, which is very, very cool. And in my new studio over here for radio, we've got a quad box, which is super cool. I've got Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, CNBC playing, so I can look at it right now and make sure that I never miss any of the breaking news stories out there. What in the world's going on here? How have we ended up in a situation where there's almost no updates, where we've now gone 2 weeks? Now, I wrote about this. We've been through 2 Monday Night Football games. And look, the situation is going to get dire for ESPN pretty quickly. Because once college football is complete, and we only have 3 weeks of college football left, there's not going to be very much sort of coin in the ESPN bank. They're not going to have great cards to play a poker hand with here. Because Monday Night Football, I mean, if you truly love Monday Night Football, you first of all get it distributed locally in your market, but also you can still get it with an antenna. And certainly you can go out for one game a week and check it out that way. So I don't really understand what the play is here, and I don't understand why ESPN would have on Bob Iger in the Manning cast and not ask him a single question about the issue that is most pertinent. Issue that Bob Iger's involved in as well, that he hasn't had to answer at all, is he owns this women's soccer team, Angel City, LAFC, whatever the heck they're called, the Women's Soccer League team, NWSL, where all of the women lost their minds on this team over one of their teammates saying, hey, women's soccer should only be played by women. I'm sorry. I don't see that as remotely controversial. What am I missing here? One of the teammates writes for the New York Post, we said, I did along with Jennifer Say, who's got a great company, XXXY, which is dedicated to the proposition that, as you can tell from the genetic code there, XX and XY, there's a difference between men and women, and it's a genetic code, and we can tell, pretty simple, whether you are male or female. We said, hey, if there is another woman out there who wants to stand up and will endorse the idea, and I can't believe this is real, that women's soccer should only be played by women, we've had players reach out. And so we may soon have $30,000 we put on the table for any women's soccer player. That's a substantial dollar figure in the NWSL universe, for any women's soccer player out there who is willing to come out and say, as this Angel City player did, hey, women's soccer should only be played by women. We are willing to put our money where our mouth is, and I am happy to join XXXY in trying to encourage female athletes to stand up in favor of women's athletics being played only by women, which is not a radical proposition, which is not a crazy proposition at all. In fact, it's the very foundation of sport itself. And so Bob Iger, who owns ESPN, is the CEO of Disney. We have a lot of media that don't want to ask questions that are actually incredibly relevant because they're worried about what will happen because the PR teams are all protecting so many of these individuals. Why has Bob Iger not been asked not only about the YouTube ESPN dispute, but at least then he could say, hey, that's a business dispute. I don't want to get in on it right now, even though by appearing on Monday Night Football, he's kind of cannonballed into the story itself, and I think he should have been asked about it. But also, why in the world is Bob Iger not being asked about the Angel City women's soccer team attacking one of their teammates for simply saying women's soccer should only be played by women? Does Bob Iger disagree with that? Does Bob Iger think that men should be involved in women's sports? Why is that not being asked? In fact, why am I the only person basically in America who even recognizes that Bob Iger is one of the owners of this team and that given his CEO-dom of Disney and the fact that they own ESPN, this seems pretty integral of a question that he should be asked. And yet, we get no questions asked about this at all. I do want to give credit to ESPN on this front. Pat McAfee interviewed President Trump today during Veterans Day on ESPN. I think that is basically the first time that I have seen President Trump interviewed on ESPN. Comes on the heels of President Trump appearing in the broadcast booth and helping to call the game between Washington and the Lions, and all the Lions players doing the Trump dance. Paul Feinbaum came on with me recently and said ESPN had barred him from interviewing President Trump in the past. I'm curious if Paul Feinbaum has a take on Pat McAfee being able to interview Trump, But regardless, I think it's a smart move by ESPN to put the sitting president of the United States on their network on Veterans Day as they are broadcasting from I think it was a Marine-related live show. I'm not sure because I was on the air doing my own show at the same point in time, and so I'm not exactly sure what the overall scenario of the show was. And I frankly haven't obviously listened to the interview, but I do think it's a sign of the shifting gears of sports. Think about this for a moment. In 2017 and 2018, the idea was that Trump couldn't be on any program at all relating to sports, and he was feuding over the Colin Kaepernick situation. Think about how far we have come in sports from Colin Kaepernick being the signature voice of the NFL, the signature story of the NFL, beginning, if I remember correctly, in 2016, and that continuing for multiple years, to now Trump is being given a jersey by the owner of the Washington team, to Trump continuing to even appear in the broadcast booth with Fox Sports, to Trump now going on with ESPN. Guess who was right? Guess who was ahead of the curve on this? There's sanity in some way returning to sports. And I don't mean that in like the keep sport. People are like, oh, I thought you didn't want politics in sports. No, I think on Veterans Day, it's fine for the President of the United States to go to an NFL game, to celebrate the veterans, and then to be on a sports network on Veterans Day to celebrate veterans when there is an event taking place surrounding the veterans. That doesn't seem crazy to me. In fact, it seems downright normal that this would be occurring. And so I think it's indicative of a major culture shift that has occurred. We'll see if there's a substantial fallout at ESPN because they had President Trump on. But I do think to go from Jamel Hill calling the President of the United States a white supremacist during Trump 1.0 to now Pat McAfee interviewing the President of the United States live on the air in Trump 2.0, the culture has shifted in a profound way. And Trump, by the way, was the first person to go. I'm going to talk about this on the OutKick show that I do on Fox Sports. Trump also was the first president to attend an NFL game, regular season, since 1978. That feels pretty significant also as it reflects a changing culture overall. A couple of other different things. MLB Gambling Scandal. Couple of pitchers charged with crimes. This comes on the heels of the NBA's own gambling scandal. And a lot of people, they sit around and they say, oh, this is a sign that sports gambling becoming legalized was the wrong choice. How in the world have we allowed this to happen? I think that's the wrong take. And you can disagree with me. You don't have to agree with me on everything, as I've said for a long time. If you agree with me on 100% of things, then maybe you should find some things that you disagree with me on. I think you should rarely agree with someone on 100% of anything. But we've got the scandal that is going on right now in MLB. We've had the arrest of pitchers for basically having the tipped off the kind of pitches they were going to throw. And people say, okay, when you look at this with MLB, when you look at this with all of the other stories that are out there, this is a sign that the NBA, we've had college baseball scandal, all these different things, that sports gambling somehow shouldn't have been legalized. I think that's wrong. And I'm going to keep hammering this home. All this is doing, I think, is showing you how prevalent sports gambling has been when it was also behind the scenes and there wasn't a spotlight shined on it. Let me just make this clear. Clip it, share it. This should be a PSA to any player, to any coach, to any individual that's trying to rig games. You're going to get caught. If you think you can make hundreds of thousands of dollars, much less millions of dollars, rigging a sporting outcome, I would submit to you that the legalization of sports has actually made that impossible, sports gambling. Because if you do it, and again, clip it, share it, become aware of it, They're going to recognize irregular betting patterns. If suddenly there's hundreds of thousands of dollars coming in on a prop bet, if suddenly there's hundreds of thousands of dollars coming in on a game that is an irregular wager pattern, the algorithms set it off because the sports books need sports gambling to be honest. Because rigged games actually cost them money directly. Not to mention they make fans trust the outcomes less. If you think you can get away with fixing a match or fixing a prop bet or trying in some way to impact a sport gambling result such that you make a lot of money, I'm here to tell you, you can't. You're going to get caught. And if you are an athlete, in addition to potentially facing time in a prison cell, which is awful, you can't make the money from sports gambling that is anywhere near what you would make as a successful pro athlete. We got guys making millions of dollars throwing away their entire pro sports career over $100,000 in prop wagers? Be smarter than that. I can't believe it. One of these Major League Baseball pitchers, Adam, look it up officially, I think he was making $5 million a year. And for $100,000, he's going to throw away a multi-million-dollar contract? Rozier was making $26.4 million this year alone. I believe he was 31 years old. What are you doing? You are completely throwing away your entire future, not only as an athlete where you might make $100, $200 million, maybe even more, but you're risking freedom, time in prison to fix some prop bets. It's one of the worst decisions of all time. Be smarter. Coaches, players, anyone involved here. Just be smarter. You're going to get caught. The legalization of sports gambling has actually made the likelihood that you're going to get caught even more significant and even more likely because, again, those wagers all get flagged. You're going to get busted. Brian Kelly. Big dispute over $53 million. Our Trey Wallace at OutKick has reported on this. You can go read about it at OutKick. Certainly there are a lot of different stories out there about this now because Brian Kelly's legal team has sought a declaratory judgment saying that LSU is bound to pay him over $50 million in settlement and wrongful, termination fee, basically, right? A buyout that they owe him over $50 million. And now LSU is trying to argue that they are looking for a way to fire him for cause, and they're arguing that he hasn't actually been fired yet. Is he coaching? Is he allowed to be in the facility? I'm sorry, you fired the dude, okay? And not allowing him to do the job is a pretty good sign that he's been fired. For those of you out there who have not had the good fortune or misfortune to be practicing attorneys at some point in time, whether he's owed his buyout essentially comes down to a simple concept. Was he fired for cause or without cause? If you're fired for cause, it means that you did something that violated the terms of your contract. That's different than just not winning enough games. If you're fired without cause, it means that you would be owed the remainder of the dollar still on your contract. It appears that Brian Kelly was fired, as most coaches are fired, because he didn't win enough games. If you didn't win enough games, that's fine. You can be replaced. But the entire purpose of having a multi-year contract is to try to get yourself protected in the event that they decide that they want to fire you. And so if you look at the Brian Kelly contract, I'll tell you an example from my own life. When I initially was doing local sports talk radio, the contract that we signed said that they could fire me at any point in time for any reason whatsoever if they deemed that it made sense to them when I was making whatever it was, $45,000 a year doing local sports talk radio. And I looked at the contract and I said, as a lawyer, this isn't actually a contract. I'm bound. I'm signing a contract that restricts me from being able to make more money or do anything else, but I can be fired at any point in time with 2 weeks' notice. That actually isn't a mutuality of obligation at all. I have a certain period of time by which I am bound legally to work for the station, but the station can fire me at any point in time with 2 weeks' notice. That means I have a contract, but they don't have a contract at all. That's not a good deal to agree to. So one of the first things I did was when we got a second contract, I said, no. You can only fire me for cause. And cause is defined typically as felonies, right? You got to be pretty misbehaving in order to be guilty of and liable to be fired for cause. That would invalidate the entire contract. That would mean that they don't have to pay me anything else out. So one of the first things that you want if you are an attorney, or heck, this is just a little bit of advice for me to all of you, you want to have in your contract, if you have to have one, that you can only be fired for cause. My radio contract now, I can only be fired for cause. Anybody can fire me at any time, but they would have to pay me out everything that I'm owed over the life of my contract. And that's really what Brian Kelly's arguing. And I would give Brian Kelly credit because I think that he is entitled. This, again, I haven't read every contract. I haven't read every nuance or detail of this dispute. And you can believe that there shouldn't be these huge buyouts. That's different. But it seems to me that LSU obligated itself here. And if they don't want Brian Kelly anymore, they should have to pay him. That doesn't feel very complicated to me. If you analyze this, I think Brian Kelly has much better of the legal argument. All right. I love all of you. I will be back with you tomorrow. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. I am Clay Travis. Thank you for watching OutKick the show. I hope you like our new studios. We'll see how these continue to evolve. In the meantime, let me make sure that I got all the facts right. Yes, one of the pitchers had a $20 million contract, 5-year deal. So he was still in a young part of that deal, but certainly would have made tens of millions of dollars going forward beyond a shadow of a doubt. All right. Like I said, love all of you. Don't bet and presume that you can fix a sporting event and get away with it. You're going to end up in prison, everybody, and you're going to get caught because sports gambling has been legalized. By the way, Pat McAfee licenses his show to ESPN. I get it, but I'm sure that he cleared the fact that he was going to have the president of the United States on the program with ESPN beforehand because they were promoting it. So I think that, yes, I understand that distinction, but I think it's a cultural shift more than anything else. All right. Love all of you. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. I'm Clay Travis. We're recording OutKick the show here shortly. That will be on FS1. Also encourage you, my book Balls is out. I forgot to put it in front of me, but appreciate all of you that have bought that book already. And I will see you guys, same bat time, same bat channel. This has been OutKick the show.